all of us have a role to play. We were created for this particular moment in time. And so, therefore, because we are created for that, there is something that we're supposed to be doing. And so we have to honor our assignment. And I believe, ladies and gentlemen, that if we trust the plan and honor our assignment, our reward will come. And I don't know about you all, but I know for a fact that that is true. If I look back in the past, just me trusting the plan and playing my role has yielded to things that never would have come my way otherwise.
What is up, everybody? We are back for another episode of the iReach podcast. We've got a very special guest. We've got Mr. Tony Waller here. Tony, how you doing, man? Thank you for joining us. It's a privilege having you on. Looking forward to this conversation, man.
No, the privilege is all mine, just to get an opportunity to talk and learn. And, I know that I'll get a lot of questions asked, but, I'm also hoping to, stump you too and ask a lot of questions. And, when once this is over, you will probably ask yourself, what have I done to myself to put up with this, individual? But I will try my best not to make it too bad.
Oh, no, I'm looking forward to it, man. Now, thank you once again. So, with the podcast, we always like to put an emphasis on the individual and recognizing that everybody's got a story, everybody's got a journey. You didn't just arrive at this position, and we'll get into your position here shortly. But I think for us to be able to spotlight and highlight individuals that have been able to achieve quite a bit and still in the process of achieving things, professionally and individually, it can be a source of inspiration, especially with the work that we do, trying to inspire the next generation. Of course, our emphasis is on construction, design, manufacturing, but essentially the built environment. You are the vice president of constituent relations and racial equity at Walmart, right? And so with being in that space, of course, having a large workforce, it's a brand that resonates right throughout the world. For me, I thought this would be very fitting because with us trying to inspire a next generation, with us talking about, working essentially within the built environment and what that means, I thought this would be very good to have you on. So thank you, man, for that.
Well, I appreciate it. It's we are in very interesting times right
Yeah.
now, but it doesn't. But the way that we define interesting, it really is up to us. So we can make it sound interesting from the standpoint of the challenges that we're facing, or we can look at interesting as real opportunity to
Yeah.
really turn things and utilize what has been given to us to the best of our ability, and that's the choice that each of us has to make.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is good. And I'm glad that kind of brought up the operative word there, interesting, and talking through, okay, it's about how do we choose to look at this. We can look at it from a very pessimistic standpoint, or we can be very optimistic about it and say, hey, this is probably an opportunity, for us. And I think that's key, that's important. But talk to me a little bit about, because you had a long title, right? So if you had to explain like your role, what does it entail?
My role entails figuring out how can we best build relationships in various markets, in particular diverse and multicultural communities, and figure out how can we in turn build a relationship of trust that ultimately will position us or position Walmart in a way that it can work with communities to actually do some impactful kind of work.
Yeah.
So, in other words, I'm looking at what are the issues that are impacting communities that are really important to communities, and then how can I leverage Walmart's size and scope and utilize it in a way that we can work together to address those needs, to address those challenges.
Mm.
My ultimate goal is to get communities to see us in a different light, to see us beyond just being a store or a club or any retail entity in a community, that they see us more than just that we're not just in the community but part of the community.
Yeah.
And once you're seeing us as part of the community, then it opens up opportunities for all of us to work together in partnership. At the end of the day, my goal is to make sure that everybody's a winner.
Yeah.
I want the organizations that I work with to win. I want Walmart to win. And ultimately, I want the communities that we're all serving to win.
Yeah.
And that degree of winning will look differently depending on the day. There'll be days, Paul, that you're going to get a little something more than I do,
Hmm.
and that's okay. And there are going to be days that I'm going to get more than that you do, and that's okay. Long time, we're all going to win, and that's the ultimate goal. And so I'm looking at finding ways of building real relationships that are transformative, that are not transactional. In other words, I ain't just trying to write a check and move on, but it's about, how can I put in what I can put in on the table, and how can you put in what you can put in on the table, and let us figure out how we use all of it together to create a real impactful solution towards the end. And so that's in essence what I'm doing. I'm building relationships and trying to figure out then how do I take those relationships, and how do we utilize these relationships in a way that ultimately we all benefit.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. And I'm sure in your position, you're engaging with a lot of folks, a lot of entities, a lot of communities. And when you think about the interesting times that we are in, has there anything have you learned anything about maybe kind of how to build that trust and how to keep that trust?
Yes. So there are a couple of lessons I think that are how would I put it? For me, like non-negotiables when it comes to building these relationships. The first is you have to be willing to be transparent and open and honest, and that sometimes can be very challenging because you often have to tell people things that they don't want to hear,
Mm.
they don't want to know, but it's necessary because if you're not clear on exactly where you are and where you stand, you then can't figure out how to move forward
Yeah.
really in some semblance of a true direction. You have to establish where we are, and you have to be able to talk to people and tell them where we are, and you have to be able to be able to tell folks when you have to explain to them why you've taken a certain stance, or why you've made a certain move, or you're taking the direction that you're taking. You have to be able to explain to folks what you're doing and why.
Yeah.
And again, that doesn't mean that you're always going to like what you hear.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that I like saying what I have to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I can't move forward. We can't build the kind of solid relationship if I'm not being truthful and honest with you, and you're not able to see that that at the end of the day, while we might disagree with each other, we really are coming from a good place, and we're all trying to get to a good place where everybody's winning,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that's lesson number one. Lesson number two is there is understanding that there's a difference between a transactional relationship and a transformational one.
Yep, sure
A
is.
transactional one is, for me, is I just write the check and I move on. Or
Mm-hmm.
I get what I get today, right? And then I don't, as long as I get what I want today, I don't care what happens 2, 3 weeks from now. Uh, and I won't even have a relationship or even a call with you till I
Yeah.
need you again, right? Versus a transformational one, whereas I'm consistently and constantly engaged with my partner.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking to you all the time. I'm sharing stuff with you, whether you ask for it or not.
Yeah.
If I know that you have an interest in construction, Paul, I'm going to always send you stuff that I see like, ooh, this is a very interesting article. If that I think that Paul would like to know about,
Mm-hmm.
or I read a particular thing, a new technique that's happening that just might be of interest to you, or there might be a conversation being taking place around AI and construction. Ooh, I need to tell Paul about this,
Yeah.
right? Because there's a constant engagement of me understanding that I can always find ways of supporting my partner that goes beyond writing a check, that goes beyond I have a phone call with him or her every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
It's knowing that I see it being imperative that I do what I can to help you succeed.
Yeah.
And that has been the other lesson, because it's that transformative, is that attitude of going in for a transformative type of relationship that then opens this door for trust,
Mm.
right? And then last but not least, the last big lesson that I've learned is you just got to show up. You have to show up. And I would argue that if you were to ask any of the partners, any of the organizations that I work with, and you ask them what distinguishes the work that we do versus everybody else, I guarantee you they'll be able to tell you that. I guarantee you that one of the things they will say is, well, you know, Walmart shows up. They're in the room. They will tell you that, Walmart just ain't going to write a check. They're going to sit down with you, and we're going to work together, figure out how this money's going to be used.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I definitely want to get your feedback and your advice, right? And your pushback too. If I'm asking for something that's unreasonable, or that really doesn't work, or doesn't fit into the structure of who you are as an organization, or the culture of who you are as an organization, my expectation is you're gonna push back. I don't do things with the expectation of you doing everything that I want you to do.
Yeah.
That's not partnership,
Right.
right? That's just being a bully.
Mm-hmm.
And I want this to be a relationship where we're all going to win, but it starts with people just showing up, and consistently showing up.
Yeah.
And that alone makes all the difference in the world. You'd be surprised how um, people perceive you differently because of the fact that you consistently show up when you're supposed to show up.
Yeah. Yeah. That is true. Because there's so much inconsistency, and when you are consistent, that unfortunately, but then in a good way, because that's a good mark of character, you stand out, right? But because there's so much inconsistency, when you do show up and you model consistency for someone or for some other organization, like that stands out. And so no, I hear you on that. But those are good lessons, and I'm glad you mentioned that, especially from a large company, and retailers such as Walmart. It's like, hey, we're not just that. And even when everything is circulating and we find ourselves in interesting times, we're still going to show up, and we're still going to engage in conversations that you want to have, because I'm sure
Yep.
you've been presented with a lot of questions and a lot of pushback maybe,
Yep.
and just being able to engage in the conversation, I think that says a lot, because sometimes when the topic is maybe uncomfortable, or a person has to move to this state of vulnerability, then they would remain in the comfort spot. But all that does is cause people to formulate their own assumptions and their own
Yep.
conclusions.
Yep.
And human nature is, and we fight against it all the time, right? I fall victim to this too. But a lot of times when we draw conclusions, they're oftentimes they're negative as opposed to positive. And
Yes.
so that's where communication becomes so important, because you don't want to leave people to formulate their own conclusions. You
Yes.
want them to be thinking, but you also want to make sure that they have the right information to formulate the conclusion.
That's exactly right. There's an old saying that says, either you tell your story or somebody else will.
Hmm.
And and that's part of this work. Part of telling the story is, to your point, showing up.
Yeah.
And you never know what showing up will do. My other favorite adage is, preach the gospel at all time, and when necessary, use words.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Right. And that means that it's about the actions, and not about it's not about the talk, it's about the walk.
Yep.
I was earlier this year, I was at a conference, and this was at a time in the beginning of the year where things were just kind of up in the air, right?
Yeah.
There had been a change in administration.
Yep.
There had been all of these discussions taking place about what was possible versus what was not possible
Hmm.
anymore. All and a lot of confusion, a lot of people trying to figure out what to do. And we showed up to this conference, as we always would. It was very important. We believed that it was important for us to show up,
Hmm.
even though we knew that there had been other sponsors and stuff that had made the decision not to, for
Yeah.
whatever reason, right? No, to your point, no judgment, but
Yeah.
they had made the decision not to show. And I found it so interesting that when we showed up, not trying to eavesdrop into people's conversations, but one example, we were standing in line for registration, and a young lady in front of me was next in line. She steps
Hmm.
up, and as she's registering and getting her badge, she asked the individuals who were registering her to just simply put her name on the badge. Please don't put my company's name on the badge.
Mm.
I just want my name.
Yeah.
Then I heard, of sponsors who wrote the check, but they didn't want their logos placed anywhere,
Mm.
right? And so throughout the conference, right, we did what we were gonna do. We registered. Yes, my company's name was on my badge. Yes, my
Yeah.
company logo was displayed at the conference. Yes, we had a major activation there. And um the CEO of the organization showed up to our activation,
Mm.
and he wanted to express, he wanted to, to have a moment, and say some words.
Yeah.
And he expressed his appreciation. He says, because, you know, Walmart
Mm.
showed up loud and proud. And yet I have people who've come to me and said, well, here's the check, but I don't want you to use my name. And he was like, well, this is the kind of thing where I'm like, well, let me tell you, I don't need your money that bad.
Yeah.
If you're not proud to be my partner, then why should I express pride to have you as my partner?
Yeah.
Right. And then after that, we had a number of participants who came to the activation. And one lady came up to me and she said, you know something? You are proof that everything that I read in the press is not necessarily true.
Mm.
She said to me, the press would have me believe that you all have abandoned everything. Like you just don't do you have literally just shut your doors down and you're not doing anything when it comes to multicultural populations.
Yeah.
But you're here.
Yeah.
So I know that what I'm reading versus what I'm seeing and experiencing are two different things.
Yeah.
And it's a lesson to me that I've got to do my own homework. That's what she said to me.
Mm.
So for me, that was everything. And again, I didn't have to tell anybody that I'm still doing this work. My actions said everything. I was able to preach that gospel to that woman. I was able
Yeah.
to preach that gospel to that CEO just by making sure that I show up like I said I'm going to show up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Paul, I will tell you that not every one of my showing up experiences was like that. Okay? Let me tell
Yeah.
you, bro. Let me
Yeah.
tell you, I got cussed out. I got,
I can
people
imagine.
calling me all kind of stuff.
Yeah.
All of the above. Everything that you can imagine, I have been through during this time.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, Paul. It ain't the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I've been at Walmart 19 years. And when I first joined Walmart, it was just like that.
Mm.
Folk who didn't want to talk to me, folk who didn't want to deal with me, folk who never wanted to entertain a meeting with the company, all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
right? But we built up to it. So now I'm going through a second iteration of it in a different kind of way,
Yep.
but I've been prepared for it.
Yep.
And I tell people that all the time. We have been prepared for this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And our job is to just execute on what we've been prepared to do
Yeah.
without fear, with a lot of courage, and look with a lot of toughening because we don't know what we're going to expect. Just expect that at the outcome is going to end up really good. It may not show up, it may not show up the way you want it to show up today.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't give up and you keep doing what you know is the right thing to do,
Yeah.
eventually it'll all pop into place. And here's the most interesting thing about this, Paul, that I tell people all the time that y'all, we are so focused on on tomorrow. We haven't looked beyond that.
Mm.
We haven't looked into what next year could be, what
Yeah.
5 years could be, how
Perspective.
all of these moves that we're making are setting the pace and setting the direction of what could potentially happen long term.
Mm.
And that's what I'm always thinking about.
Yeah.
Paul, I assure you that the pendulum will swing the other way at some point.
Mm.
And will you be in the right position when that pendulum swings? Or will folk swinging the pendulum remember how you played when that pendulum was swung the other way?
Yeah.
And will that play a role in deciding whether or not our long-term future looks good?
Mm.
Or will I have to work even harder now? Because now I have to convince you that I'm for real.
Yeah.
Even though in the past, what you showed me was sketchy.
Mm-hmm.
You were my friend for a minute when things were good, but when things got a little tough, you didn't know me anymore.
Yeah.
And now that
Right.
things are good again, now you want to be my friend? Now
Yeah.
you want to play with me?
Yeah.
Folk have long memories. But as the old adage say, fool me once, shame on you.
Yep. Fool me twice.
Fool me
Shame on me.
twice, shame on me.
Yep.
Right? And so when that pendulum swings, I'm gonna be thinking about all that kind of stuff. How you broke my heart. You made me feel bad. You left me. And now you're crawling back and coming back.
Yeah.
Whoa, wait a minute now.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, so those are the kinds of things that I try to get people to understand. Now, again, it does not mean that you're gonna that you, Mr. or Ms. Partner, that you're going to get everything that you want. There's
Yeah.
some things that we have to do differently. The size of the time require us to do it differently.
Yeah.
And that's hard to accept, Paul. That's very hard to accept.
Yeah.
So things like I had to get over, like, what? You don't want me to use the words DEI anymore?
Yeah. No.
I got stuck in that realm.
Hmm.
When at the end of the day, it ain't about the words, it's about the actions.
Right.
Again, another adage, like Barbara Jean Molly Waller, my mama used to say. She said, baby, you can call a cow a kitty cat, a puppet dog, a dove, a chicken. I don't care what you call a cow, as long as it's giving me my milk.
Yeah.
You call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
Now, when the cow stops giving me milk because of all of these things that we call them, now we got a problem.
Hmm.
But until then, I don't care what you call the cow.
Yeah.
And that was like what I had to remind myself, right? As long as I can get the work done, as long as communities are prospering as a result of the work that we're doing, as
Yeah.
long that people understand that we're still committed to this work and it's seen in the actions that we take. You don't want me to use those words? That's fine.
Yeah.
Because it's not stopping me from getting the work done, which is ultimately what we're supposed to try to do. Yes. Right. And so I had to teach myself that, right? Because I was like, oh, my life is over.
Yeah. That's
And
a
I'm
big
walking
shock
around mad
because
and
when we
angry.
have, that's the framework, and what we have is we have language that communicates what we do, how we feel, and so when you're using language which is framed and approach to work, that extends to other people and communities or what have you. Now you want to reframe that or take it away, then okay, wait a minute. I'm responding to that. My knee-jerk reaction is, so the work stops, and when it's a connection to dignifying humanity, it's like, so how is that gonna work? Because that's just how that's the only way to be, if
Right.
you're trying to do
Right.
things the right way,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
Right.
so people that are in this space, or that were, working in this space, we're in this space, or just people that, want to do right by other people. When there's been three words, or let's call it three letters, that has shaped, how we go about working, and we've been able to frame our work through that, and now you want to take it away, that can be a foundational shift where you feel like your world is kind of being rocked upside down, or society is being rocked upside down. And so that translates to a lot of opinions, that translates to a lot of emotion, that translates to a lot of verbal jabs, especially in a social media environment where you're not even having human interaction. It's all of these posts and all of these
Right.
stories, all of these
Right.
articles, and it's just a swarm of information and opinions, and you're trying to figure out what is substantiating. So, even when you first started out talking, like at the beginning of the year, when all of this dropped, and then of course when you all came out, it was like, wait a minute, what is going on? Um, it created more questions than answers.
Absolutely. Yes, it did. And
You know,
and it did for everybody. It
yeah,
did it for us internally, as well as to as well as to everybody on the external. It was hard to wrap our minds around this. You know, that has the tendency of paralyzing you to a certain extent, right? Because you're still wrestling, you're still trying to figure out like, what just happened here,
yeah.
and what does this mean?
And what is
I
happening? Right? Yeah,
Yeah, what is happening exactly, and what does this mean? And I hear you're telling me that the work continues. I hear you're telling me that our values haven't changed. I hear you telling me, but what does it look like, right?
yeah,
Because right now, all I'm dealing with is words. I'm not quite understanding what the future actions will be.
yeah,
Personally, it took me a minute to just wrap my head around what had just happened, And I needed some time to sit down and assess what was that going to mean,
Mm,
and kind of establish kind of that baseline, if you will, to then to then being able to figure out, okay, so what am I going to do next?
yep.
What's my next 2 steps? What are my next 10 steps? What are my next 25 steps? That kind of a thing. But I had to come to terms with, okay, this is my new normal. This is my new, ground zero. This is my new starting point. And then once I kind of figured that out, then the real work began of
Yeah.
just figuring out, okay, so it is what it is. The question now is, what are you going to do with what is, and put a
Yeah. No,
plan in
that's
place.
yeah. So when you're looking at, because I know you mentioned earlier, just by looking at the long game, if you will, and just kind of having that perspective, like, yeah, this is what's happening now, but we need to be able to see past, today or even tomorrow, and have a longer perspective in mind. So when you think about kind of, especially in your position, and I think you are the right person to ask, how do you foresee like the next 5 to 10 years per se, influencing kind of now how companies are building trust within diverse communities?
Well, the thing I'm focusing on right now is, one, building a new set of words to utilize. Like, what's going to be the language
Mm,
that I'm going to use right now, or in the future, or I'm trying to build to, and what is it that I'm trying to solve for. So if we look at what is happening right now and why we have seen the kind of momentum, if you will, for what is happening right now and the discussions that are taking place, most of it is just based off of this premise that somebody is being excluded.
mm,
That's ultimately what's being put out there,
yeah.
because of what you are doing, because of the actions that you're taking, because of the programs that are in place, because I am being excluded from an opportunity.
Hmm.
So the question I'm always asking now is, what I'm doing in the name of inclusion excluding anyone?
Mm,
Is someone being excluded as a result of my work in inclusion? So framing it in my head that way helps me to figure out how I'm going to construct what it is that I'm constructing, what I'm building, what I'm
yeah.
trying to make happen, right? And I'm always asking that fundamental question: is anybody being excluded if I do it this way?
Mm,
Who's being excluded? That doesn't mean, and by that, Paul, I'm not saying that every program has to be like, if I don't have Caucasians, Black, Asians, Hispanics, people with disabilities, LGBTQ, women, and everything, mixed population, when old people, young people, people from the country, people from the city. If I don't have all that, then I can't do the program. I'm not saying that at all.
mhm.
What I am saying, though, is that we have to make sure that what it is that we're doing is open to everyone,
Yeah.
that everyone is able to participate. That's
And
what
it's
I'm
built
concerned
off the
about.
right principles so that it can translate to any community.
To anything, right?
Yeah.
Now, it's up to you whether you show up or not,
Yeah.
right? But let it not be said that I didn't invite you to the table,
Hmm.
right? And so that's the mindset that I'm always working around now. Whenever we're doing something, my team already knows that I'm going to ask the question: could anybody feel as if they would be excluded from this potential opportunity or activity or activation or whatever?
Yep.
Have you
Mm.
thought it out how anybody could feel excluded? And again, Paul, look, we human, we're not going to always catch it, right? But we want to make sure that we're actively trying to make sure that that's the case, that everybody has the opportunity to participate should he, she, they choose to,
Hmm.
right? And then after that, the other piece for me that's important is and we talked about this earlier, about the language that I use in the work that we're doing.
Yeah.
So here's one example that I'm working on right now. My team typically works in a vertical manner,
Mm.
meaning I've got an individual who focuses on the work that we do in the African American community. I have a person who focuses on the work that we do in the Hispanic community. I have a person who focuses on the work that we do with the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander community, American Indian community, people with disabilities, women, LGBTQ. There are people that focus solely on that work,
Yep.
right? So they're working vertically.
Okay.
I have now been focused on trying to convert all of that work from vertical to horizontal.
Mm.
I'm trying to figure out how can I work in a landscape versus a portrait.
Mm.
I tell people all the time, when you take your cell phone and take a selfie, right, in portrait mode, you in it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Flip that phone landscapes, and what happens? 9 times out of 10, there's more than you in that picture. There's somebody else in there, right? So how do we operate looking at not just what I'm working on, but how that work that I'm working on is interdependent
Yep.
with everybody else?
Yeah.
And so what are the common things that we are all working on that while we may be approaching it in a different way, it's still something that's impacted by all of the communities that we're serving?
Mm-hmm.
And are there ways that we could be working together, collectively bringing resources, money, and people together to be able to do bigger and better work than what we're
Yep.
doing right now, siloed?
Yeah.
And the conversations, we're always having these conversations about like, oh, we should be working, we should be working in tandem. We need to break these silos. Well, here's an opportunity to, in my opinion, to do just that. That we can prove that working in a collective, in a kind of horizontal manner, we could probably get more work done and really do some more impactful work and tell a bigger, better, badder story than we could tell it separately.
When you talk about that, it makes me think about the work that we do and coming into the construction industry where, when we came into it and we did the research, and this has been, it's been 8 or so years now, but it's still like that. But we came in differently based on their research was, hey, we're siloed. Everybody's doing their individual thing, and then you have union and you have non-union. It was very siloed, but you couldn't build traction. Meanwhile, you had a retirement crisis that was hovering over the industry, where there was an entire generation, that was aging out, and we weren't backfilling those positions at the same rate. And going around and talking to various stakeholders, educators, company owners, brands that are hiring the construction industry to build
Yeah.
for them. You had all of these different stakeholders at the table, young people, what have you, union, non-union, and they all had a different vantage point. But what we understood was that, what, we do not collaborate enough, especially when you have a generational need. I'm sure you hear it just because of the sheer amount of physical locations that you all have, and of course your brand resonates something outside of construction, but you partner a lot with the industry to build and
Yep.
remodel your existing footprint or
Yep.
to establish new footprints and new communities. And so it's like, I understand that. And that's been our approach, as a workforce development consultancy, but really specializing in showing up in community, and allowing projects to be more communal and introduce a younger demographic to construction career pathways that
Yeah.
didn't even know existed. And then building that bridge between industry and education while being present in community, right?
Right.
And just being able to model that has helped a lot of the industry and stakeholders that have been in the space for decades and longer than I've been alive, to say, oh, okay, this is what true collaboration looks like. This is what partnership looks like. It's like, yeah, we need more of that if we're going to have the traction that we need.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, you speaking about that, and kind of reshaping how your department and your team kind of gets out of working vertically and more laterally to have that more collaborative spirit, if you will. I think that's a principle that can be picked up and transferred, because that's what we are trying to do too. So that resonates. Yeah.
Yeah. And culturally, it's something that we've always known. and we've always benefited from. When my parents were kids,
Mhm.
right? Everybody in the neighborhood knew what was going on with every kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
You weren't just your mama's child. You
Yeah.
were the child of everybody on that street
You sure were. Yep. And
because
you better
it
act
again it
right or
was in the
they gonna let you know. Yep.
that's right because
They
it
go
was
get
in
you,
the
then they go tell your parents.
yeah because it's in the collective,
Yeah.
right? Because all the mothers saw that in order for us to really make it, we all have to be involved.
Yep. That's
That's
true.
how the whole notion of it takes a village
Mm.
came up because that's how we lived
Yeah.
always. And that goes back to our ancestors in Africa, right?
Yeah.
They lived in a collective. And somewhere along the way, we lost that,
Yeah.
right? We lost it, or well, I'll leave it at that. We
Yeah.
lost it, or we were tricked out of it, or people understand the power of the collective.
Yeah.
So oftentimes, divisions are created to separate folks versus because in the collective there's too much power.
Hmm.
Those are the kinds of things that happen. So how do we get back into this mindset of understanding of understanding the value of working in the collective versus what we do right now? We spend so much time working as individuals and doing our own thing and not wanting to share information and not wanting to help our partners out, or we limit the amount of help that we want to give because the idea that you may go over and above me, I don't want to deal with that. So I'm only going to give you but so much.
Yeah.
When if we understood that if I help to pump you up, the chances of you being able to pump me up becomes even greater.
Hmm.
You're not stronger than I am. You
Yeah.
can now lift me up and help me out.
Yeah.
Or we can get to the point where we can work together and really build something even real special as a result of us understanding that there is an interdependence between us.
Yeah. Oh, and that is my word. Interdependency. Yes. Recognizing that we become better. We can become what we have the potential and capacity to become once we realize the value in other people.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Yep, yep. No, that is good. Oh my gosh. Tony, it's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much. Gotta have you on again, man. This has been great. A very good conversation, especially during interesting times. I think being able to lean into questions that everybody has, right? The elephant in the room. It speaks to just your commitment. It speaks to your character, being present, showing up, but also being consistent and leaning into conversations that folks know is out there, and it's out there. And so, being able to address those things, talk through those things in a very transparent way, it goes a long way. And so, I appreciate it.
It's a real pleasure, and kudos to you and the work that you're trying to do and trying to make happen, and to all the listeners. I encourage you, just continue to be encouraged.
Yeah,
I know that it's not, that there are days that it just seems like so tough and challenging, but I believe a couple of things. One, the plan is good and the plan is perfect.
mm,
uh, and that means for me, everything is playing out the way it's supposed to play out.
mm,
Now, I didn't say anything about liking how it's playing out. I didn't say you understood everything that's playing out the way it's playing out. I didn't say anything like that.
yeah,
All I said was that how it's playing out, it's the way it's supposed to be playing out. And our job is to trust the plan.
mm,
Trust the plan. And number two, play our role in that plan. All of us have a role to play. We were created for this particular moment in time. And so, therefore, because we are created for that, there is something that we're supposed to be doing. And so, we have to honor our assignment. And I believe, ladies and gentlemen, that if we trust the plan and honor our assignment, our reward will come. And I
yeah,
don't know about you all, but I know for a fact that that is true. If I look back in the past, just me trusting the plan and playing my role has yielded to things that never would have come my way otherwise. And so I believe it's going to happen again. And I believe it's going to happen to you, Paul. It's going to happen to all your listeners and viewers if they just trust the plan and they just play their role and be consistent no matter what the world tries to tell them.
Yeah, exactly.
Eventually the reward will come.
It
Yes.
is. You got to be a firm believer, man, because there's so many things that happen that can cause you to feel overwhelmed and to feel like you don't have control. But when you know who's in control, me, I'm trusting the Lord all day, every day. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, hey, God's got a plan for me.
Yep.
Nothing has
Yep.
escaped His plan. That is
Yep.
the perfect plan. And
Yep.
it's just like, listen, we gonna be good. You know what I'm saying? And we just continue to be consistent. We continue to do our part and allow Him to take care of things that He takes care of.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.